So I'm here with Norman. Thanks so much, Norman, for joining me.
Chris, it's great to see you. Or is it Mitch?
I know, right? Thanks. My mom calls me Mitch. Family calls me Mitch from a middle name, but yeah, I'm Chris. And I know you go by Norm or Norman.
That's right.
Norm, you have been through the cycles of our industry. A lot of people look up to you. You've bought, sold, hired, fired. You've done it all. Ownership, capital raises, management, and even technology. Tell me a little bit about maybe. I know you're speaking here at IMN this week. Tell me a little bit about what you're focused on, and maybe what you're talking about, and what you're most excited about.
Well, I don't know if it's exciting for a lot of people, but we're talking today about distressed multifamily assets. And if you're an owner and you are one of those people in distress, this is not an exciting topic for you.
Yeah.
We have a really unique market going on right now. It's been in formation for well over 3 years, about 3.5 years now.
Wow.
And it's really moving very, very slowly through the bowels of the system before it comes out. I call it market purgatory. And I think it's ironic that we just installed a new pope, and as you know, to get out of purgatory, you need Saint Peter, and hopefully, this new pope will appoint a new Saint Peter that can sort of help these multifamily distressed assets go from purgatory to hell or heaven, wherever is appropriate for each asset. So I'm hoping that starts happening. It's going to start. It's starting to happen now, but I think we still have a little while to go.
It's a great analogy. I think one of the things you've seen, if anyone's seen cycles, you've seen them. You were a part of the 2008, 2009 timeframe, right, where you actually helped distressed assets in that timeframe. What was that like, and how do you apply that to now?
Well, there are a lot of things that are different, but so many things remain the same. And distress is still distress. So let me just give you a brief history of me starting back.
Yeah.
I was a lawyer, a real estate lawyer, and I did an amazing amount of incredible workouts in 1990 to 1993 in the RTC days, when the government basically seized every savings and loan in the United States and just dumped all their assets into the stream of commerce in a way that caused tremendous discounts and a lot of disruption. But very quickly, once they're in the stream of commerce and people have an economic incentive, they fixed those properties, got them going, started generating revenue, and we got out of that cycle very quickly. But one of the last deals that were done was a bankruptcy in Sweden. It was here in Atlanta, and it was the Four Seasons Hotel office and condo tower, and I bought that. And that's what started RADCO in 1994, coming out of that RTC real estate cycle. And then I did one deal at a time, two deals all by myself with one or two staff members for about 5 years.
Wow.
And then Lehman Brothers came to me, and they were my debt and equity on the Four Seasons. And they asked me to start looking at underperforming assets they had.
Yeah.
And then over time, they made RADCO the off balance sheet workout company for Lehman. And so they made us national. So we went to Boston for a high rise, 2 high rises in Chicago, a $500 million deal in Los Angeles. So we became a national company because of Lehman. And so in 2006, we were underwriting a deal for Lehman that they wanted to foreclose on.
Wow.
And I told them that basically they could get no money back. And in fact, 2 weeks later, it was refinanced, and they got paid back $50 million, all their investment and their accrued interest. And I said, that's crazy. How did that happen? So I went back to the modeling room, and it was a condo deal, and I increased the sales prices 10%, then 20%, then 30%. I doubled the volume, and then I tripled the volume. Then I cut the cost of sales in half, and I pressed the button, and it was still a negative IRR. And I realized then that the market was crazy. I couldn't compete in it. I withdrew and sold everything I had. And then in November of 2006, I put out a press release announcing RADCO as a workout company for distressed assets. And for 9 months, I was like the Maytag repairman. Nobody called me. I was very lonely. I'd go out of the office. Anyone call today? No one called. And so for 9 months, nothing happened until Bear Stearns had the hiccup in their 2 mortgage REITs. The phone started ringing off the hook because
what year was that? Was that 2007?
2007.
Yeah.
And so we really started getting busy then. In 3 days after the Lehman bankruptcy, I was called up to Lehman headquarters. I was put into a dank, small, little, dark conference room, and they said, "Wait here." And then 2 analysts came in with carts with files up to ceiling falling off, and the analysts are putting them back on, and another one falls off. And I said, what's that? And they said, we don't know, but anyone who does know has been let go. You're now in charge.
Yeah.
And so I had almost every Lehman real estate deal throughout the country. You put a flavor on it, it was there. I was the president of 5 different golf courses.
Wow.
And
So they own all types of asset
I don't play
classes.
golf.
Yeah.
And it actually is appropriate that, because if I played golf, there were holy grails that I couldn't have taken on, but I have to take on everything to make the value destruction stop and try to stabilize them so we can start clawing back some of that value. So it was an incredible time. Problems I never thought existed. But here's the thing, it was all other people's money.
Yep.
It was a unique time. I had no risk, though I was sued 30 or 40 times. Just being in the chain.
Sure.
Everyone was suing just to find out what was going on. So I had some risk in that way, but I had no money at stake. And here I am solving all these problems all around the country. And one of the things that we found, and this is really interesting, this shows you my age. In 2009, we went into the conference room and I put oak tag up on easels across the whole wall, not a computer. And I said, okay, let's see if we can find a common denominator to what distress means.
Yeah.
And so we put down, things, name something. The developer stole money.
Yeah.
Put that down. Probity of the developer. The undercapitalized, and go on and on and on. There's like 10 different things. So 5 properties would be in one category, 10 in another, 12 in another, 6 in another. But one had them all. One had every single property, no matter what the property type, was in that one category. And that was, when faced with changed circumstances, the developers, the sponsors, did not change their business plan. And that became a cardinal rule for us. You cannot be loyal to your business plan. You've got to be loyal to your success. If you see something's not working, you got to sit down and figure it out really quick and pivot. You can't sit back and say, no, that's my business plan. And that's what I'm seeing even today as we're taking over one distressed asset after another. I think 24 multifamily assets we've taken over since January. Yep. Some we bought. Most lenders or pref lenders have delivered to us to try to stop the value destruction. All of them have that same that same problem, that the developers just didn't change. They put their head in the sand, and that's something you just cannot do when you have changed economic circumstances.
So you've seen the good times and the bad times, as they say. This too will pass. As you mentioned,
sometimes the bad times are my good times. But
yes, I was going to say, and you're there and you're seeing the numbers. I'm curious to know, because that opportunity. How do you know when the bottom? Because you never time the exact bottom. Usually, it's Warren Buffett. Sell high, buy low, and that's his whole thing. What is the secret? Is it more emotion? Is it you just say, you know what, it's gone down enough that these assets are valued, and this is or is it also picking a niche and knowing that niche?
Well, it's a combination. So first of all, let's talk about Warren Buffett.
Yep.
He owns companies. So most of those companies, not all, are public. And when you have public stock, like Coca-Cola or Apple, which are 2 big holdings, he can buy and sell them at will. Now, you may say, with a huge position, take a week or 2 weeks to sell all your Apple position. But you can sell it. There's a market for it, and there's liquidity, and you can sell right away. Multifamily doesn't work that way. It takes probably 6 months from the day you decide to sell until there's a transaction. You first have to get, broker opinions of value, and they come and pitch to you. And then they say you need to do these 3 things or 5 things or 10 things to get the property ready for sale. Then you do it. Then they put it on the market. And there's 30 days before people come make the first bids. Then there's a best and final, another best and final. Then you negotiate the contract, right? Then you have due diligence. Then you have the closing. So it takes 6 months. So how do you pick that market when it's a 6-month process that at any time a buyer can pull out?
Yep.
So you can't do it like Warren Buffett with stock and say, today's the day I'm selling Coca-Cola. I think it's at the high. If today we said, today is the high of multifamily, or like, say, January of 22 was the peak of multifamily, and you said, I'm putting it on the market in January, it wouldn't transact till June or July. And by that time, the market had already turned and retrades happened, or people walked away, and you lost that peak. And so you can't you can't, like Warren Buffett, really try to, though he does says he doesn't, he
Sure.
does try to time the low and the high. The best thing is to buy lower and sell higher. And we, for example, had 100 multifamily assets. We sold them all second half of 2020, and we sold 98 of them. In the second half of 2020, actually the fourth quarter of 2020, all of 21 and the early 22. And if you look back and see some of the properties I sold at the end of 20 and 21, they recapitalized for $50 million more, $20 million more a year later. And I go, damn, if I only kept it. But 1 month later after that, game was over.
Yeah. And those
So
things are down, right?
right,
30,
so
40%.
right. So one of those recap deals that I sold, I've just already taken back, and I'm now
Amazing.
negotiating with the lender to buy it. So, it doesn't always, even though you recap and you think you did great, the asset suffers. So it's not about, you can't time it exactly at the bottom, and you can't time exactly at the high, but don't be in love with your real estate. If your business plan is to get a 20 IRR and you got it, sell it. I mean, don't be,
You're no longer a buyer.
No.
You should be a seller. I think that brings up another topic, and you're about to go on stage. Is you've got, if you think about it, net buyers and net sellers. Sometimes people are buying and selling, but there's a lot of sellers and buyers here at this event. You're net buying right now, right?
That's
You're out.
correct.
Okay, so you're out there looking for deals. What is your thesis? What is your focus if you're buying right now? And if someone's out there is looking to sell, what are you looking for? What's the type of RADCO deal?
You may hear that there's a lot of capital out there right now, a lot of equity out there, unlike 2010 and 11 when there was no capital at all.
Yep.
And it's true, there's a lot of capital out there, but it's all tied into a box. It's either Class A core that's in lease up, or a Class A core you're buying well below replacement cost, even though you have negative arbitrage between the cap rate and the cost of debt. You may have a value add bucket, and there's several value add buckets, but it's not distressed. They're looking for stabilized, very little deferred maintenance. It's all about put 10,000 in a unit, get a 15% ROI kind of thing. So there's very few of all those deals out there. They're like perfect in the middle of that square. And so those deals, if they exist, they get bid up.
Okay.
And they get bid up to astronomical numbers that relying on math just don't make sense. So we look for the deals that money can chase, and that those are the most distressed, not just from a capital markets point of view, which those are, but from an operational point of view. That's 50% occupied, 10% delinquency, $1 million in deferred maintenance. You can go on high crime, maybe whatever you can think of, whatever flavor you can think of that goes into challenges operationally. We try to buy, because one, we're really, really good at it. We've done it for 31 years now. And so we really know how to attack it. We know how to change our business plan on a dime to see what the market really wants, that we have a great sense of it based on all our experience. And we then are alone when we bid on it. What we're finding now in those type of assets, there are only 3 or 4 players that have name recognition, capital, and reputation to be able to close that are competing with us. Very often, the lenders who hold the debt don't want to take big write downs, so they're willing to stay in at a much higher loan to cost, negotiate that debt to make it more palliative to a buyer, because they don't want to write it down.
Sure.
But if you do that, your buyer's got to have the capital, the know-how, the reputation, and the ability to make that asset work, because otherwise a year from now, you're going to be in the same place. So there are only 4 or 5 of us that are really in that ballpark. If you look at Pat Carroll, that sold to RMR, they're not in the business anymore. Hack Finkelstein, one of our big friendly competitors, was bought by RPM.
Sure.
And we can go on and on and on about competitors that either got hit because they didn't sell, have their own capital markets problems, and can't buy, or they're now no longer what they were. They're not entrepreneurial, they're now more institutional. So that's where we're going, where few dare to, what is that, Star Trek, few dare to go.
Yeah.
That's
few men go. Yeah. The last frontier.
The last frontier.
The last frontier. And you just hit on a really interesting point, because, obviously you talked about the risk mitigation and your risk profile, risk to return. The other thing I think you just hit on is large corp, large orgs versus small. Some of the largest ones now over 1 million units. Consolidation happening almost seems like every week. What is your take on that? Is that good for the industry, or does that present a better opportunity for the smaller operators?
I think it's both. I think that if you go back 15 years to the last cycle, we had that amalgamation and concentration of units in big companies. Take Miles, if you remember, they had 50,000 units, not a million, but then it was a lot of units, and they collapsed and just died, right? And those 50,000 units got scattered all across the industry. So a lot of the biggest players got crushed in 2008 and 9, sort of either sold off and became smaller boutique firms, or they went out of business. I think some of that could happen today. It could, but I think it also add some professionalism to our industry. We still have the Wild West in some of the some ways that some of our management companies operate, and I think we need some professionalism, new technologies that the bigger companies can afford to invest in. So I think they may add some value to the entire industry. But those companies are now getting out of the distressed business, believe it or not. Even though they should be gravitating to it, they're now a coupon clipper, right? And so they have more money spent in business development than they have in operations. So they just want to keep churning, getting more fees in. If a property is 50% occupied and 10% bad debt, they're not getting a lot of fees. They're going to have to do a lot of work, put a lot of resources that they may not want to deploy to one asset. And so you see companies like RPM will no longer take on a property, I think, less than 1990s. And it has to be relatively stable. So I think that opens up a huge path for companies like ours, trailblazers as we are, to come in and set a whole new standard on these properties.
That's interesting. Because, I mean, probably more properties are older than 1990 than are newer than 1990, I would imagine. I think one of the other areas you hit on is when you're thinking about, growth and you're thinking about leadership. You've seen a lot, and you aged yourself there because you said 31 years, started when you were 18, so that makes you almost 50 years old.
Almost.
But you've got a lot to celebrate, a lot of things going on in life and in business. Tell me about leadership, and maybe as this relates, you talked about making decisions. And now thinking about leadership and building your stack of your company and your team, and then also your stack in technology and AI. Is it Gary on your team who's working on that stack, and you have some technology you've been building? How do you think about AI? What are your thoughts there in managing leadership with technology together?
So first, let's talk about leadership. And leadership comes in two ways. First, by setting a standard about what we're trying to accomplish. And I was born in a public housing project in East New York and Brooklyn. And I knew growing up as a boy how good property management, supported by police and the schools, could provide an idyllic life, even for a poor kid from Brooklyn in the projects. But then when things changed and the property management wasn't that good, I turned away from the notion of excellence, but simply was following the political tea leaves. My life suffered greatly. Crime, I was beaten up every day. There was no consequence. It was the playground would be defaced. It wouldn't be cleaned up. The police took a step back. It was my life was changed. And I said, if I ever was in a position to affect people's lives, like I was being affected as a child, then I would ensure that no child would have anything but a wonderful early experience. And so I say this to all of our competitors out there, all the people I see in the room, I'll see today, and I've seen a conference after conference, and I look at them and I said, throw away your spreadsheets, stop thinking about your profits, stop thinking about your refinancing, stop thinking about your investors, and think about the fact that your final product at the end of the day is providing a family a home. Don't you want to be good at it? And so many don't. Or if they are, it's by accident, not because it's a fervent desire to be good at what they do. They're just in it for the money. So they're in the capital markets guys rather than apartment guys. And I think you have to be both. And if you provide a quality experience for a family, kids are safe, it's clean, it doesn't have to be Class A. It could be Class C. But as long as it's a value, it's clean, and it's safe, then that family is going to enjoy staying there and stay there, and the kids are going to have a great experience. And so I teach that to my employees every single day. And you know what? People want to go home at night, and when they're at the dinner table and their kids or their spouse says, "Honey, what did you do today?" That they can say, "Today I did good. I did something really good, and I affected someone's life in a positive way." That's leadership. That's creating a raison d'etre for our staff and a rallying cry to be better than just average. And so that's the first part of leadership that's really important.
Yep.
The second thing is I'm hands on. I have my hand on the pulse of what's going on in my company, both from a personnel perspective and what's going on in every property. My employees are constantly shocked what if I just go there and I start listing off 20 things going on at the property, and they go like, "How do you know that?" I just interviewed somebody from another company, very large company, and I asked, "How do you like working for so and so?" And he said, "I wouldn't know. I've maybe said hello in the hallway twice in 10 years that I've worked there."
Huh.
I go, "Wow." I mean, that's not leadership, not the leadership that I recognize.
Yeah.
And so the second part of leadership is being present, showing you care, showing your concern, both for the employee and for the property and the residents, so that everyone just embraces that and is excited to work for someone who cares. So those are the two parts of leadership. Now, the second part of your question deals with technology.
AI.
And we're doing two things. One is that where we created Arlo, assisting Radco Living operations, which has taken all of the paperwork off the property. That includes collections, evictions, even inputting the leases, so that our manager and our leasing staff and our maintenance staff can deal with the residents, talk to them, have time to understand them and help them. And then we take everything in house. So that then requires both human resources and AI, you call it. Some of the AI today, I'm going to be very candid, are algorithms that are powerful, but they're not AI. They're not thinking. I think we're going to get there. But our operating softwares, the Yardis, the Entradas, Appfolios, they're closed systems, and they themselves are slow in adapting and modernizing. I think I call them now in the 1990s, maybe 2000. They were in the 80s just 5 years ago, and they're not allowing easily these new disruptive technologies to be added or bolted on to their operating platforms. So it's very, very slow in multifamily. It's not there yet. There are a couple of softwares that I think are very exciting that we're using, leasing AI that's actually learning, and we are very, very positive about that. We have the same in work with work orders, but it's not everywhere yet. I think the next 3 to 5 years are going to be incredibly disruptive. I think mostly in a positive way.
Awesome. This has been great. Thank you for taking so much time. I know you have to go prep and go speak to the big audience, but always great. And thank you for being a force, not only in the industry nationwide, but also here in Atlanta. Congrats. The American Hotel. We'll save that for the next conversation.
You got it.
I love the story of the American Hotel. I need to tell more people about it.
It's the headquarters, really, the epicenter of the civil rights movement of the entire United States. It's incredibly exciting history. Can't wait to tell that to everyone on our next podcast.
Love it. Thank you so much, Norm.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye.